Hey everybody, and welcome back to FSi DFS. I am McKinley412. We're looking at the early Saturday slate for this one. Nice little 6-gamer where they all start at the same time. It's a race to the finish. Should be fun. So we'll just kind of dive right into it, talk about our favorite plays. There's a lot of value out there. We will talk about the value. We'll even take a little trip towards Fangraphs and their amazing data and their website. So we'll just kind of break it down into the different groupings. So top grouping is Senga, Singer, Springs, and Lodolo. Senga, most expensive pitcher at 9.4K, going up against Miami, who strikes out a lot against right-handed pitching. So let's go over to Fangraphs, just like I said. Let's break it down into teams against right-handed pitching. Miami, number one. They, as a team, have a 32.7% strikeout rate against right-handed pitching. It's bad. Like, that's really bad. That shouldn't be that high all throughout the season, but if it is, we're definitely going to be targeting Miami a whole lot more as moving forward. The little knock on Senga is he did have a little bit of control issues, but he's a veteran of the game. Like, he's not new to professional baseball. He's just new to MLB here. But I think he'll be fine at 9.4K. You're not too salary strapped like on this slate, especially like when you get down here to 8.5 Springs. There's not too much to be concerned about salary wise. So do like Senga at 9.4K. Singer going up against San Francisco. Just talked about how Miami strikes out the most against right-handed pitching. San Francisco, they rank third against right-handed pitching. So they strike out at a 27.2% clip so far in the season. I mean, it's 200 plate appearances. It's not like a massive sample size, but it's also not a small sample size. Like, it's pretty decent. There's a little boosted thanks to Garrett Cole and that opening day start, but oh well. Singer, I think he's probably still the 4th ranked pitcher among these guys. I got the sheet up. Why am I not showing you the sheet? I still think Singer is probably the 4th ranked among these higher pitch guys. Senga, I got ranked 2nd, right behind. The next guy we're talking about is Springs, going up against Oakland. Don't be expecting a 40.9 DK game from him again, but still a great matchup at home. He's got great strikeout upside. We saw it all through last season. Like, we can't just be looking at game logs this early into the season. Just don't do it. We got to look at more data. So we're still kind of looking back into 2022 when we're looking at things. And Springs has a solid track record. High strikeout rate against a bad offense, 8.5K. Sign me up. I think he's going to be the number 1 pitcher on the slate. If you want to look for a little bit more upside, honestly, maybe even more of a GPP play, Nick Lodolo. Last season, throughout the whole season, he had a 30% strikeout rate. So he can go even higher than that with his ceilings. Tough matchup going up against Philadelphia, but still, 8.3K for a pitcher with a 30% strikeout rate on average. You got to have some interest in him there. I do have him ranked 3rd, though, behind Senga and behind Springs. Going into the mid-tier, Justin Steele for Chicago, going up against Texas. I think Steele's probably my favorite here. He had a nice opening start. We do have to remember that his opening start was in Wrigley in temperatures that were in like the mid-30s. It was windy, so it was even colder than that. The wind was blowing in. It was a beautiful pitching environment. So Steele got a little boost with that, but still. He's going up against Texas, and while Texas, the bats were really hot at the start, they have been ice cold since. Let's look at their past 5 games. 2 runs, shutout. 2 runs, 5 runs, shutout again. So shutout in 2 of your past 5, only scoring 2 or fewer in 4 of your past 5. Offense isn't doing too great. So check the weather in Wrigley if the wind is blowing in, and even more of a boost to Steele. Let's see what his price is. I think it's 7.3. No, 7.6. Still, that's fine. 7.6. He's got, an average to a slightly above average K rate. He's fine. Nice matchup. Could be a good play in this mid-tier. Below him, I got Manea going up against Kansas City. Struggled in his first start, but now he's got a much better matchup going up against Kansas City and their woeful offense to start the season. So, am I going to play Manea over Lodolo or Springs or Steele, like guys that he's sandwiched in between? No. Am I going to play him over Rodgers? Yeah, because I don't really like Rodgers too much in this matchup. Left-handed pitcher going up against the Mets and all of their righty bats. They can get like 8 right-handed bats or switch hitters in their lineup, and Rodgers really struggles against right-handed bats. We will get into that data a little bit later into the video. So don't have much interest in Rodgers. Perez, he's fine going up against Chicago, kind of the same thing. As like Steele. Kind of almost like the same as Steele. He's fine. He's got a decent strikeout rate. decent matchup, and if the winds are blowing in at Chicago, I'm going to have a little bit more interest in him there. Houck going up against Detroit. Houck had like the worst spring that you can like ever have. Like it was atrocious. But now he's got Detroit, and he bounced back in his opening start. So I don't have too much concern with him, especially at 7.1K. I'm curious to see how popular he's going to be. It seems like the pitchers going up against Detroit this season are going to be very popular. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Houck is not a lock by any means. I'd take a handful of pitchers above him. But still, anybody going up against Detroit, you got to have some interest in. And then Valter, he's just kind of there. So this is kind of where I ranked everything. Fade Fujinami, fade Wentz, fade Rogers. And yeah, so let's look at the bets. Tampa Bay, I think they're going to be the number one team, number one stack going up against Fujinami, who just got lit up. He started off okay, and then it was just done in one inning. It was bad. It was bad. I can't deny it. He's not that bad of a pitcher, but still, going up against Tampa Bay and what this offense has been able to do so far this season, like that's not who you want to face when you're trying to have a bounce back game as a starting pitcher. The other thing that's great about Tampa Bay is that they are cheap. We talked about some cheap bats. Lucarelli, he's probably going to be back in the lineup as a left-handed hitter going up against the right-handed Fujinami. He wasn't in the lineup the past 2 days because Tampa Bay was facing left-handed pitching. So he should be back in. He's been batting in like that 4-5 hole spot. So anytime you can get a guy with power at 3.4K and like the best matchup of the day, hitting in the cleanup spot, you got to have some interest in him there. So he is first base eligible, also outfield eligible. But do you want to take up this first base eligibility when you got other guys who we'll talk about in a little bit? We'll see. Wander Franco or Rosarena, they've just been monsters so far this season. Yandy Diaz as well. One guy who is super cheap, low 3.3K. He's been leading off when Tampa Bay's been facing right-handed pitching. He's just had a really bad start to the season. Like he's a much better hitter than this. So like I'm not gonna not play him because of that. So if anything, it just reduced his price and makes me want to play Tampa Bay stack even more. So a lot of interest in Lowe just because of the value, a lot of interest in Rayleigh because of the value, and like as well as like where these guys bat in the order. Like these three guys are going to be batting in the top 4 or 5 of the order. Rosarena, he's in there at 5.9. Pretty much anybody for Tampa Bay, I'm going to have some interest in just because they are affordable. Boston going up against Wentz, going up against Detroit. They're obviously more expensive. Well, not obviously, but they're more expensive than Tampa Bay is. They have a lot of lefty power in their lineup, but I'm not too concerned about the lefty on lefty here. Wentz, decent opening start, but he was allowing some hard contact. I think I read in his little game log blurb that like the average exit velocity for his pitches. Let's see. It was like 90, over 90 miles an hour exit velocity. That's not good. That's not what you want to see. So he was definitely getting some luck in terms of the BABIP. So Boston, pretty much anybody is in play. The only issue with them is that they are more expensive. So maybe like you do pair them with Tampa Bay because Tampa Bay has some of that, cheap affordability. And then when you're looking at like where the guys line up in terms of like position eligibility, they sync up pretty well. So throw in like Devers and some outfield guys for them. They kind of blend well together. Maybe you want to go with Casas at first base, throw Rayleigh into the outfield. You can do that as well. But I do like Boston. Then the third team that I think is in the top tier is going to be the Mets going up against Rogers. We talked about Rogers having bad luck against right-handed bats. Well, not bad luck. He was just bad. But looking at his 2022 data, just because there's not enough in 2023, you just look over here. He allowed 194 batting average to lefties, but a almost 300 batting average to righties. So he's got pushed around. We'll just say it that way. And the Mets, they can have a lot of right-handed bats. Another value play that you can be looking at is Pham. 3.8K. When the Mets had played left-handed pitchers so far this season, Pham was in the leadoff spot. So if you can get a guy in the leadoff spot of like a top 3 offense on the slate, gotta have some interest in him. So Pham could be a nice value spot for you there. Rayleigh, we talked about being first base. Do you want to pull Do you want to fill up your first base with Rayleigh, or do you want to go with Alonso, who historically is one of the biggest lefty mashers of anybody? Like, he's just absurdly good against left-handed pitching. So when you do that, you kind of want to throw Rayleigh into the outfield, because I kind of want to give up Rayleigh. I don't. He's probably going to be in the core. So you can kind of see. Let's just see what salary's looking like. I'm curious. I haven't built yet. Throw in Springs. We'll throw in Senga. 3.53 remaining. You can do it. You can do it. Not an issue there. Obviously, the Boston bats are going to be a little tougher to squeeze in there, but you can certainly do what you will. But the Mets, Alonso is definitely going to be in play. Tommy Pham could be leading off, so he's going to be certainly going to have some interest in him there. Everybody else, they're a little bit more expensive. It's just another reason why I didn't have them as the top overall stack, just because of their price point. But pretty much, I'm not too concerned about Nimmo even being in a lefty-lefty. Just throw in anybody. I think they should be fine, but definitely want to target the right-handed bats against Rogers. Over to the GPP. San Francisco going up against Singer. I mentioned how San Francisco can strike out a lot against right-handed pitching, but they also have some serious power against left-handed pitching as well. Guys like Jock Peterson, Yastrzemski, Wade Jr., Conforto, like half their lineup is lefties who have had a solid start to the season. We saw what the ceiling of this team can be on offense a couple of days ago. Their price points aren't bad. If you want to go one-off on one of these guys and hope to get like a home run, I wouldn't argue with you there. The other issue is you run into a lot of first base eligibility with the guys that you're interested in, like guys like Jock Peterson and Lamonte Wade Jr. So are you going to take up first base with them? Or are you going to go with a guy like Rayleigh? Who knows? Because there's a lot of first base and outfield dual eligibility guys that we are interested in on the slate. It can get jammed pretty quick. But if you want to go with the San Francisco GPP play, I don't mind it. They're probably one of my favorite GPP plays just because of how many left-handed hitters and power hitters they have that can go up against Singer. And yeah, so I know I said I like Singer for GPP, but I kind of also like San Francisco bats for the GPP as well. Kind of funny how that lands. Detroit, I mentioned earlier how Houck has like the worst spring in history. So who knows what was going on there. Can't take a whole lot of grain of salt just with spring training. But the Detroit bats, they showed that they had some power to them in spring, and they can, get on base, steal some bases, have some pop in their bats. It's not as much as like a lot of these other teams, but still, it's a small slate going up against an average to below average pitcher. It's going to have some interest within there. Chicago, Texas, kind of rounding things out. Kansas City is cheap. Leverage spots, it's going to be Miami against Senga. Senga, I mentioned he has a little bit of control issues, so maybe you have a little bit more interest in Miami, especially with Jazz somehow being healthy. There was that video going around on Twitter of like a Miami trainer looking at Jazz Chisholm at second base being like, oh, this is a season-ending injury, and then he's in the lineup 2 days later. Doesn't make sense. But yeah, so Miami going up against Senga. Maybe he has some control issues and they can get to him there, steal some bases. Philadelphia also going to have some interest in there with the leverage going up against Lodolo, who should see some ownership with just how high his strikeout rate is. And then Oakland, kind of rounding things out. So that kind of covers this whole slate. I think it's pretty straightforward. I'm just going to kind of stick near like Springs, Senga, Lodolo, and Steele. Those are kind of like going to be the four that I kind of hover around or stay around the most. Then I'm going to have a lot of Tampa Bay. I'm going to have a lot of New York Mets, some Boston sprinkled in there as well. And then just maybe some one-offs here and there. So the value is there with those teams. Pitching, it's not super expensive, so I don't think it's going to be too much of an issue. So thanks for watching. Really do appreciate it. Give this video a like, thumbs up. All that really does help us out and providing this free content for you. And yeah, so as always, good luck in your contest. Thanks for watching, and yeah, see ya.